complicated, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's so complicated. And I was really struggling with my reaction to it all. And when I read Miriam's book, it gave me a foothold. It gave me a way to navigate and investigate my feelings about it with nuance and wit, and gave me an idea that there could be a community conversation that didn't have to be so, you know what I'm saying? Hear what I'm saying? Cut. Yes. Not that I don't believe justice needs to be served, and it does, and it has. Then there are the other situations where it's not about justice, it's about complicity, isn't it?
Yes.
And so I think that Ashen was about what's my role, what's my position in this larger conversation.
Yeah.
So I feel that that's what Miriam offered, and that's what Sarah has taken, and she always understood, and when you read her book, you'll understand that she's trying to make a very specific, personal, and universal, and offering the conversation about that.
Miriam is.
Yeah, Miriam and Sarah.
Yeah, right. So,
So I optioned the book.
Yes, okay. Very good. And then at what point did Sarah Polly come on board? And was she always the choice because she writes and directs this, so in the previous films that she's done, she's also written and directed. Was she always your first choice?
Yeah,
What did that look like?
I can't even remember if, actually the first person that I brought the book to was Dee Dee Gardner, because I have to say the moment, I knew that Dee Dee worked with Plan B, and I knew some of their films, but the time that I really attached her name to a film was Moonlight. And it wasn't just the film, which really I felt was a paradigm shift in filmmaking, but it was also when the Academy Awards debacle happened, where they were not invited to the stage to celebrate their achievement. Now, I have very specific ideas about what that competition means. What happened in that moment for me was when it all breaks down. When that thing broke down was the night. And then the next year, when they were not invited back to celebrate that film, but the two people that made the mistake were invited to come back and redeem themselves, like, okay, this is really messed up. So there was something about it for me that was like, who's Dee Dee Gardner? She's making these movies. She's responsible for something that's happening in filmmaking. I want to meet her and I want to work with her. So I sent her the book. Our first meeting, she had diagrams, she had outlines. She is a smart woman and she knows how to develop films. And so one of the people she always wanted to work with was Sarah. So she brought her up a name, and we also really believed that it needed to be somebody that was going to take from soup to nuts. You know, it wasn't going to be somebody that we kind of farmed out a script to other people and that we're going to develop. It was going to be somebody who had, and Sarah had already read the book. Miriam Taze is from Ontario.
Right.
They know each other's work. Sarah had read the book in her book club. She'd already attached the idea of, oh, this could be my answer to these larger questions culturally. So it was like the perfect storm, really.
Interesting. And so, talk a little bit about working with Sarah and the choices that you made in developing the actual script.
Yeah, it was
But specifically the voiceover stuff as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. There's so many things I want to say about working with Sarah. I want to start with that from the moment I started producing work to act in, and then now just want to produce. Forget about the acting stuff. Ooh, I like this other stuff. But no. So that was Olive Kittredge. That was 10, 11 years ago. I've only worked with female filmmakers, not because I wasn't interested in working with male filmmakers, but because that's the way it happened. And it seemed that female filmmakers were the best people to tell the stories of what the material that I was bringing to them. So what I've learned so much about Sarah. Sarah has taught me so much about leadership and the difference between patriarchal leadership and matriarchal leadership. One of the things, and one of the best examples of this, I have two that I'd like to give you if I may.
Oh, yeah.
We were just talking about this. So the narration of the film now is in Auche's voice, the youngest woman of the hayloft. In the book, it is August is the narrator because he is asked by the women as a literate person to come into the hayloft to take the notes. So it was a literary conceit that Miriam used that was great, and Sarah translated that into her adaptation. So we went into the filming of the film with August narrating the film, Ben Whishaw, the exemplary Ben Whishaw, recording that narration, and then as it got into editing, it just didn't seem right. Now, then we started tracking it back to early development, and both Dee Dee and I saying, you know, it's kind of weird, right? It's women talking, and the first voice you hear is a man. I don't know. But it was moving forward in a lot of different ways. So then when they get to editing, many things happen. And when I wish Sarah could tell you this story, but I've seen her tell other people. I've seen her tell audiences. And this is what I'm talking about leadership and a matriarchal leadership. She says, so there was this point where Fran and Dee Dee were making noise about it being August, and okay, that was part. And then Kate's performance in the editing, we started being really drawn to her perspective of what was happening in the hayloft as the youngest member of this group of women. Then in the editing, so then Chris, the editor, male, said, you know, Sarah, you keep leaning towards Auche's point of view. And then Dee Dee said, what about, what if Auche was talking to Una's unborn child or child born, and so when Sarah tells the story, she tracks it all back. Every single moment of the decision-making process, she gives credit to the voices that were in that process, and then she made the decision. It's not like she let up a whole bunch of other people. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? No. We're gonna make it Auche. That's matriarchal. That's a leadership. The other moment that I think was really profound for me was, help me, what was the other one I wanted to tell you? Matriarchal.
About Kate and what Kate said? What Kate said? Was that the moment? No. Other moment. I'll tell you what I'm forgetting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's a whole other
That's a whole other
point, but since we're talking about Kate, the culmination of this process, I think, is best exemplified by something that Kate, the actress that played Auche, the youngest member of the community, when we first showed the film in Telluride at the Telluride Film Festival, one of the questions from the audiences after the film was to the group, how did this experience affect your life? If it did, how? And Sarah said something, Claire said something, and then Auche, Kate, she raised her hand. We're like, you don't have to raise your hand, Kate. And she said, okay, well, when we started this process, I felt that I should just do as I was told, and then I realized there was more expected from me, and now I expect more. Boom.